The Spotlight brought to you by Beacon Plumbing.
Good evening and welcome to The Spotlight. I'm David Rose, and for our show tonight, we are bringing you crimes of a different kind, cases that are unique, unsolved, and often unexpected. We begin in the North Shore School District, where not one but two schools are without their principals. They've been put on administrative leave in response to a police report and an extreme risk protection order meant to take guns from one of the two principals who are married to each other. The initial focus was on the principal of Sunrise Elementary. The documents describe Michael Griffin as delusional, acting with erratic behavior. The Spotlight's Matthew Smith says police believe he was on drugs, noting he had a gun and was rambling about devices tracking and watching him.
But if the questions can be focused on the listen and learn tour, we would really appreciate it. That's what this space is for at this time.
That's North Shore's Executive Director of Communications during a superintendent engagement meeting today. She's responding to a Sunrise parent who was asking about Principal Michael Griffin, writing, "Can you please advise how we restore trust that this school is safe for our children? I'm also concerned about the retention of teachers and staff at the school with the stress this has caused." Concerns arose because the man at the helm of Sunrise had a drug problem. That's according to this protection order. In it, family members claim he was using drugs and becoming more and more paranoid. His erratic behavior finally led to a police confrontation at this parking lot, the QFC in Redmond, back on April 30th. Officers responded to a 911 call about Griffin making, quote, paranoid statements that his wife was in danger and people were after her. Police also noting that he was likely on drugs, writing he had, quote, dilated pupils, invisible white powder on his lips.
I think we also need to recognize that addiction is very serious. I certainly don't want someone who's had an addiction to illegal substances, which causes delusional thoughts, to be around my children, let alone leading and guiding my children. And I think we need assurance that he's removed from his position, but also have significant empathy for his family. I think they have the biggest impact in this whole ordeal.
Parents like the one I'm speaking with are frustrated, but also concerned about speaking out on camera since they have kids in the district. They say they're learning more from searching for information and sharing it with one another than statements coming out of the district. Letters did go out to parents on Wednesday, saying in part, district staff are aware of the details of the report and are following required personnel procedures, end quote. About 25 minutes away, a similar letter went out to Morelands Elementary parents in Kenmore. The school's principal is Michael Griffin's wife, Megan. Like her husband, she is now on leave as well. A second letter to parents noting North Shore School District became aware of statements made by Principal Megan Griffin in a police report, end quote. Those statements can be seen here, including the phrase, our recreational drug use began about a year ago.
It needs to be fixed, but he can't be in that position around those children with that addiction.
Matthew Smith with that report. That statement from Griffin's wife noting our recreational drug use was given as part of an extreme protection order. Essentially, it removes guns from Griffin's possession. Police tell Matthew that order was granted and they will keep those guns away from him for a year. Well, an update now on an unusual health threat in Pierce County. A woman there who has refused treatment for tuberculosis is now in custody after months of delay and multiple warrants for her arrest. A judge ordered her jailed back in March after the Pierce County Superior Court found that the woman was in contempt of order to isolate. She's been on the run from authorities ever since, but Pierce County Sheriff's deputies finally located her this week. She was booked into the negative pressure room at the Pierce County Jail, where she'll get treatment as ordered by the judge. Tuberculosis infections usually affect the lungs. Left untreated, it can result in death. People with active, untreated TB are contagious, and they represent a risk to the community. Inhaling just a few bacterial cells is enough to cause an infection. Well, during her time on the run from authorities, deputies say the woman reportedly was seen taking a public bus to a local casino. Tacoma Pierce County health officials are now working to identify anyone who may have been exposed. A lot of strange things are salvaged from roadside green space cleanups, but a discovery this week by the Litter Patrol at Weehart, Seattle beats anything we've seen. Check these images out from the East Duwamish Greenbelt in an area above I-5 that's frequented by homeless campers known as the Jungle. The Weehart team came across an abandoned telehandler valued at more than $150,000. The high-end forklift was reported stolen back in February. The thief managed to drive it multiple blocks unnoticed before plowing through the brush. A tow crew was able to extract it And by all appearances, the big rig remains operational. Now, we're learning more about the charges a local star from the TV show Love After Lockup is facing. Deputies say this started when Antoine Whitaker was inside Tulalip Bingo. The Spotlight's Jennifer Dowling shares details on the case and the latest on the hit and run that he is now accused of.
Police say they spotted drugs sitting in Whitaker's unoccupied car as it was parked in one of the lots behind me while he was inside gambling. Snohomish County deputies believe that this case may have been the reason he fled the scene of the hit and run a few weeks later.
The Snohomish County Sheriff's Office says this is Antoine Whitaker fleeing the scene of a hit and run in Snohomish May 8th by disappearing into the woods.
I believe he fled on foot because he knew he had outstanding probable cause from Tulalip PD to be arrested.
Whitaker was featured on the WE TV show Love After Lockup alongside his love interest Lacey during season 4. The show follows the lives of men and women who form romantic relationships with people on the outside while behind bars and then try to make it work once they are released. Court documents show he started getting in trouble with the law again on March 14th when a Tulalip patrol officer was cruising the south parking lot of Tulalip Bingo, spotting an Audi with a missing plate and noticing a baggie with a, quote, white crystal residue substance inside in the cup holder. His narcotic canine buster gave an alert, and after running a check, the officer discovered the registered owners of the Audi were Lacey Rogers and Antoine Whitaker. Court documents show Whitaker was located near the back of the gaming floor playing a slot machine. After being detained, police say Antoine admitted the baggie contained cocaine and to having 100 pills at most on his person. Approximately 100 M30 pills were found. His car was impounded and he was field booked and released. Meantime, police say Antoine explained his girlfriend might leave him if she thinks he is going back to prison, then cashed in his gaming ticket and walked off property. A black pistol was found in the impounded car during a later search, along with a digital scale and 2 larger bags of cocaine weighing in at around 116 grams. Before he could be arrested in that case, he was then accused of crashing a VW Bug into a Subaru at 180th and Snohomish Ave, brandishing a firearm and fleeing. Court documents show a witness said Whitaker told him he had warrants out for his arrest and wanted a ride, and stated that he saw a firearm on the man concealing it in his waistband.
Deputies did conduct a track involving canine, and it did lead to a nearby residence. However, they were not able to locate the suspect.
Deputies say Whitaker lived nearby, and it's believed that that's where he fled. After releasing the hit and run photos, the public helped to ID him, and deputies moved in to make an arrest about a week later. But Whitaker didn't make it easy.
At first, the suspect hid inside the attic at the residence.
Court documents state multiple announcements were given to Whitaker to surrender, but he refused. After about 45 minutes, police say Whitaker finally exited the attic.
When they knocked on the door, he did not initially come out. However, about 30 to 45 minutes after talking with him and speaking with him on the phone, he did peacefully surrender.
Jennifer tells us that Whitaker already made a first appearance in court. Jail records show he has posted bond and he is free. Well, criminals wearing wetsuits made off with about $20,000 in cash after they broke into a home on the shores of Lake Washington. They managed to get into an unsecured safe and they got away in a kayak. And the scariest part of all of this is that police say the homeowners were inside when the burglary happened. Well, now the quiet and tiny community of Yarrow Point is on edge. And the Spotlight's AJ Janabel shows us who police are trying to identify.
Take a look at these two. Police say these wetsuit-wearing thieves used Lake Washington to make off with a small fortune. The break-in happened early morning on the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. The two broke into a home while the people who lived there were inside and stole $20,000 in cash, then got away in a kayak paddling toward Kirkland, police say. This may have been their only option for escape. The town of Yarrow Point only has one road in and out. It's a small community with less than 1,200 people living there, and the city contracts with nearby Clyde Hill Police. Officials with the Clyde Hill Police Department wouldn't speak to me on camera. They tell me they can't share more because the case is an open investigation. Police do say it's possible they could have acted quicker. Since the people living at the home were in the house during the burglary, they immediately called police. However, Clyde Hill Police tell me about 45 minutes before this burglary, several neighbors in the community saw the suspects trying to break into 2 other homes, but those neighbors did not call 911. I went to the Yarrow Point Town Hall to speak to the mayor about this pricey heist in this small community, but she was unavailable.
That was AJ Janavelt reporting. Neighbors we spoke with say this isn't the first time that someone has used the waters of Lake Washington to commit crimes. Investigators are asking anyone who has information to contact them. 8 years and no closer to closure in the brutal murder of a developmentally disabled man in Tacoma. Now, detectives are hoping that fresh information may help them catch the killer or killers. That story when we come back. Welcome back. You are looking at a new booking photo of 74-year-old Dexter Fortner. Thanks to a tip from a Fox 13 viewer, he was located by Department of Corrections officers in Montesano in Grays Harbor County. The capture comes less than 24 hours after we told you he had a warrant for his arrest for child molestation. Fortner had been on the run for almost a year. He's now booked into the Nisqually jail where he's being held without bail. An update tonight on the disturbing sexual assault at Pacific Lutheran University that we first told you about last month. The man accused of breaking into dorm rooms at PLU and groping students made his first appearance in front of a judge in Pierce County. Dylan Robinson has been charged with burglary first degree, indecent liberties, and assault. Several PLU students told detectives that Robinson broke into their rooms and groped them. Before he walked into the courtroom, his attorney asked that we not show his face, but the judge denied that request. One of his alleged victims showed up to make an unexpected statement in court.
I just hear women talk about how scared they are, how terrified they are that this could happen to them because it happened to me, it happened to another person, and it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
The judge set Robinson's bail at $500,000 and he is still in jail. If he were to make bail, the judge ordered 3 no-contact orders for all of the alleged victims. Robinson is also not allowed to go to PLU's campus. Well, the broken-hearted Tacoma family is begging for your help to solve the death of their loved one. Stephen Speakman was a threat to no one and a friend to so many people. But 8 years ago, he was brutally gunned down in broad daylight. Tacoma police say there's possibly more than one shooter who killed Stephen Speakman in 2015. But the Spotlight's Frankie Thompson reports they've yet to find the gun, and they say every lead so far has fallen short in their investigation.
Almost 8 years now that Stephen has been gone. No. And nothing has happened.
Heartache that feels just as painful as November 3rd, 2015, the day 26-year-old Stephen Speakman was shot and killed in Tacoma, just around the corner from his home.
It's hard for me, and walking in this room and seeing these pictures up here is crazy.
Emotions still run deep for Stephen's family, trying to live life without him.
I feel Stephen every day. You know, he's with me.
Known as a gentle and kind person, his family says Stephen had an intellectual disability and functioned at the level of a 10-year-old. Still, he enjoyed daily walks around the Hilltop neighborhood where he lived, greeting neighbors and local businesses. So when he was shot many times in the head and chest during a morning walk that fateful day, detectives questioned who would want to kill him.
There were several people that were detained, I believe, and looked as possible suspects, but through investigation they were ruled out.
Now almost 8 years since his death, and the case has gone cold. Detectives hope bringing new attention to the homicide can reveal new leads in what's been a challenging investigation.
There's nobody that will say anything, lack of people talking, a lack of witnesses, lack of any video evidence.
It's just frustrating that we can't find out what's going on, and I just ask anybody that's out there to come forward.
Forward with answers that Stephen's family has painfully been waiting for since November 3rd, 2015.
I want justice for him, because it should have never happened to him.
That was Frankie Thompson reporting. Tacoma police are asking people to dig deep and refresh their memories in this case. They want tips on any suspicious people, cars, and activity around the time of the shooting. Investigators also want to know more about the people that Stephen was with that day. It happened in the 1000 block of Martin Luther King Way. Anyone with information is asked to call Tacoma police right away. Straight ahead, a contestant on the game show Family Feud is now a convicted murderer. How his appearance on the TV show may have foreshadowed a brutal crime. Caught on camera, a wild crash in southern Georgia. Body cam video shows a car launching off a tow truck ramp. Take a look.
At their last 250 rollover.
After flying through the air, that car hit another vehicle before crashing down in an upright position. The woman driving the car that flew off that truck ramp is expected to be okay. A deputy was also taken to the hospital after he was hit by debris from the crash. Kias and Hyundais are still being stolen at prolific rates, despite a software fix put out by the car manufacturers months ago. The original surge in thefts came thanks to a TikTok trend. Earlier this month, the car companies reported that only 7% of owners of Kias and Hyundais have come forward to get the update. There are 8 million potentially vulnerable vehicles out there. Well, Kia and Hyundai also decided not to issue a safety recall for the fix. Some dealers say that makes it harder to convince car owners they need to come in for an appointment. An Illinois jury found a former game show contestant guilty of home invasion and murder. He appeared on Family Feud and just got convicted of shooting his wife 14 times. We've got the details from the Spotlight's Madison Scarpino.
The jury deliberated for about 4 hours before convicting Tim Bleefnick, and he could get life when sentenced in August. His wife, Becky, was a valedictorian and award-winning nurse in this small community. 3 years ago, her husband joked on the game show Family Feud that getting married was a mistake. The Bleefnicks were in the middle of a divorce and custody fight when he killed her, but he left behind plenty of evidence. Investigators found shell casings in his basement that matched the murder weapon, and prosecutors said Bleefnick researched how to commit the crime before biking to her home and killing her. Her sister also testified Becky once texted that, quote, "If something ever happens to me, make sure Tim is the #1 person of interest." The lead prosecutor says Becky's family is relieved the trial is over.
At the end of the day, there are 3 little boys who have lost their mother in a tragic and violent way, and now we're going to grow up for the rest of their lives without their father. And luckily, they have grandparents and they have family that supports them, but nothing we did was going to bring Becky back.
That was Madison Scarpino in Quincy, Illinois for us. We reached out to Bleefnick's defense attorney about the verdict. We have not heard back. Bleefnick will be appealing that guilty verdict, though. Still to come, hackers hitting close to your heart. Pacemakers are among the medical devices vulnerable to cyber attacks, as we find out how hospitals are trying to protect patients. Amazon just agreed to pay a big fine over alleged violations involving 2 of its high-tech products. The company agreed to pay $5.8 million in consumer refunds for alleged privacy violations involving its Ring doorbell camera. The FTC says the Ring camera allowed Amazon employees to access customers' private videos. In a separate settlement, Amazon will have to pay $25 million after it was accused of violating children's privacy rights. The agency says Amazon failed to delete Alexa recordings at the request of parents. TikTok stored thousands of U.S. users' Social Security data in China. That's according to records obtained by Forbes. Now, TikTok CEO testified in March that the company stores American information in Virginia and Singapore. But the report by Forbes claims the platform actually stored it in China. Forbes says it based its findings on documents it obtained, including internal communications, audio recordings, video, screenshots, and documents labeled privileged and confidential. TikTok maintains the data is stored outside of China and is only accessed on an as-required basis by global engineers. Insulin pumps, defibrillators, pacemakers, and even nurse call buttons at hospitals could potentially be at risk of a cyber attack. The FBI says more than half of all digital medical devices are at risk of being hacked. The Spotlight's Linda Schmidt is in New York with more on what's being done to get ahead of the threat.
We are totally at risk.
The risk is to every piece of medical equipment that connects to the internet. An FBI report released last year found 53% of digital devices, including pacemakers, defibrillators, nurse call buttons in hospital rooms, and insulin pumps, have critical vulnerabilities to cyber hackers.
The risk can be, if they hack into an insulin pump, that they either stop the insulin from being secreted from the pump so that the person then doesn't get their insulin, or give too much insulin.
Dr. Mark Jarrett is with Northwell Health. He says large hospital systems have cybersecurity departments to upgrade software when available and monitor for potential hacking. However, ambulatory centers and smaller hospitals might not have the resources.
In a small, let's say, rural hospital of 30 or 40 beds, they haven't got the staff to be doing this all the time.
Which means they are more at risk.
This is a major concern for the country and other countries as well.
Is it potentially life-threatening for a patient?
There is a tiny, tiny risk it could be life-threatening.
Now, under a new law that went into effect in March, the FDA is requiring manufacturers to include cybersecurity software and update capabilities in all of their new medical devices in the future.
If you don't have cybersecurity, you're first putting your device out on the market, you're not going to get to market.
But the new FDA law does not apply to the millions of medical devices already in use. Devices that experts say could fall prey to cyber attackers.
We have been living with that risk and will continue to live with that risk.
Vikrant Arora is the Chief Information Security Officer at the Hospital for Special Surgery. He says hospital systems like HSS monitor devices around the clock and have contingency plans.
In case a device is compromised, there's a playbook as to how they want to respond to the incident without impacting patient care significantly.
I don't want patients to be worried that this is going to happen tomorrow, but it is a problem that's being addressed across the country.
We reached out to hospitals in Western Washington, including Harborview Medical Center and Seattle Children's. They have not gotten back to us yet to tell us how they plan to deal with the threat. Well, that's all the time we have on this edition of The Spotlight. Until next week, be smart and stay safe.